So if you have not seen episode 2, then I highly advise that you back out of this video because I'm gonna expose or spoil more of this episode than I did of episode 1 last week. So in last week's episode, Richard Hammond joked that this week's episode wouldn't have cars in it, and in a way he might have been right. The main segment of the show didn't have cars in it as much as the last episode did, and maybe some future episodes will. Still, I still enjoyed the episode because while it wasn't chock full of car material like last week's episode, it did have a lot of studio time, so you got to hang out with the crew and the crowd, and they interacted with them more, talk a little bit more about car news and things like that. So if you like that part of the show, you get a lot more of that this week. So in my video last week, this guy left a comment stating that while he liked the show, he did feel that the chit chat and the banter was a little bit too scripted feeling and fake. And if you felt that way about the first episode, then I really think you'll feel this way about this episode. But if you don't, then I think you'll like them equally. Now, this week's main segment did consist of guns, explosions, a helicopter, and a desperate hostage situation featuring the Queen of England, and I say that in air quotes, obviously. That crazy Amazon budget that you've heard about around the internet definitely shows in this episode, and of course in the opening sequence of last week's episode. Not only is the cinematography great as usual, but it really does feel like a movie at times. When Clarkson is introducing the facility that they'll be at and they'll be shooting at and having a good time at, it really feels like you're getting prepared for an action movie. You'll have to watch the sequences just to really see. I'm not going to show much footage from that, but you have to watch the sequence. It looks fantastic. And actually, I should note that in this episode, I actually did watch this episode in 4K and with an HDR television, so it was a whole different experience compared to last week. Now, with that said though, this main segment that I'm speaking of with all the action in it might bore some car enthusiasts, but not me. Now, in my opinion, it was entertaining and generally fun to watch. Now, with me saying all this about cars and stuff, don't think this episode does not have cars in it, because in the midst of all this madness of guns and explosions, they still find a way to review an Audi S8. In fact, I'm kind of inclined to state that all the guns, explosions, and the Queen of England was just a fancy way for them to review the Audi S8, but I mean, I might be in the minority with that statement, who knows. Now for me, the highlight of the episode wasn't the fact that Clarkson got to drive around an Aston Martin Vulcan, which had some of the oddest sounding brakes I've ever heard in a car, but for me it was actually May going to a spinning event, and that spinning event is called Wheels and Smoke. It may seem odd and juvenile to many, but it seemed like really good fun to me. These events basically consist of people doing burnouts and donuts inside of a ring, with one goal in mind. Actually, they may have two goals in mind. They want to create a lot of smoke and blow out their tires. And that they did. The greatest part about it was seeing the driver get out of the vehicle as it was still spinning around madlessly, and seeing the sheer terror on May's face. It was fantastic. Overall, I think the episode was fantastic, and I had a lot of fun watching it, especially watching it in 4K. If you have the opportunity to watch this show in 4K with an actual high quality 4K and HDR television, you really should do it. But even though I'm saying all this fantastic stuff about the episode and how much of a joy it was for me to watch, a part of me does feel like if this was the lead episode of the series, if this were the first episode, then many people might have had second thoughts about the show in general. But thank you guys for watching. Hit me up in the comment section below if you have some nice or some bad things to say about the show. I'll be happy to talk to you guys about it. Overall, I really enjoyed it. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next week for another review, and we out.